celebrate Yule and discussing the idea of different things you can do for people. It has different meanings for different people. And today we're going to be speaking with Sencha. Um,
Chinka.
there we go. Yes, take a drink, everybody.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking with him about the various aspects of what he's out there with. And it's a lot of Druidism. If you've been seeing it lately, the Black Mountain Druidry TV show that's been showing on Pagan World TV and throughout the web, this is the gentleman who's brought it to us. So go ahead and why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Let people know.
Okay. My name is Sencha Skene. That's my pagan name. My name in the professional world is Charlton Hall. I'm a retired marriage and family therapist and marriage and family therapy supervisor. Right now, I run the Mindful Ecotherapy organization, which is just Druidry with a scientific sounding name, more or less, for mental health professionals. Also, the chief of the Black Mountain Druid Order, and we have a free course in Druidry there on the website that lasts a year long. It's the Foundational Druidry course. I came into Druidry 1978 in Pensacola, Florida at Emerald Coast Grove. And then later on in the 1990s, we founded the Black Mountain Grove, which later went on to become the Black Mountain Druid Order in the early 2000s. It was named after Black Mountain, North Carolina, very close to Asheville, for those of you who are familiar with Asheville. I've been a musician since 1974, and I started doing pagan music about 2015, 2016, and have several pagan albums out. Also wrote a book called Foundational Druidry that is a companion piece to the online Foundational Druidry course.
So where can they find your Druidry course at?
It's on the Black Mountain Druidry website. You can go to blackmountaindruidry.com, or you can go to blackmountaindruidorder.com. And then there'll be a tab up there that says courses. You click on that. You do have to register for an account, and that's just because of the software that we use. And we don't sell your information or anything like that. We have a privacy policy. But you go in there and you just click on take this course, and then you sign up for it. And it's a free year-long course, and you're registered for it.
That's very interesting because I think so. Druidry has become once again it's on the rise for people looking for information and knowledge. So I think that's a very powerful aspect to it.
Yeah.
And so
I was just going to say, back when I started, there were maybe 2 Druid orders in the entire United States. Now there seems like there's 2,000.
well, it's all growing very. It's what we wanted. It's all very much on the growth side. So I know that it's been hard for a lot of people who have been involved to see that growth, but it seems like you're welcoming it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so what is, for those who don't know, because this time of year, very much the wheel of the year, very much has a lot to do with Druidry in some ways. It's the idea of the changing of the season, the solstice. A lot of people always say the Druids were the ones who celebrated this. Can you give us a little bit of idea what Yule is like from the Druidic point of view?
Well, in our particular order, we only have 4 basic principles that you have to adhere to. And then after that, however you want to celebrate Yule is up to you. But just in general, I can tell you my personal experience. I don't try to speak for everyone in the order, but my personal experience is it's a time of rebirth and renewal. It's the birth of the Mabon, if you're familiar with the legend of the Mabon in Celtic mythology, which is the golden child, very similar to the Jesus aspect of the Christian religion. And it's a time for rebirth and renewal after a long time of slumber and inner contemplation and meditation. Of course, it's when the sun does return to us here in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's all about that whole idea of renewal of energy.
And so, yeah. And so, how do you celebrate it?
How do I celebrate it? We just moved here from Tacoma and middle of a pandemic, so we haven't really gotten a group here yet that has started meeting face to face. Where the COVID restrictions are starting to slack up a little bit. But I can tell you how we used to celebrate it back in the Black Mountain area when we were there. We would have people over, and our rites and rituals don't tend to be a lot of the rites and rituals that you see in the pagan community, unfortunately, are modeled on Christian ideas, which is one person standing up and pontificating a good bit about what they think the season means and all that. So, and while everybody else listens, and it's almost like a sermon. What we usually do is we have some sort of drum. I don't know if I could turn the camera around, you'd see all the drums hanging on the wall here. We have a
Mhm.
drum circle. I play several different musical instruments. We all sit around and sing and chant, and we try to make it as participatory as possible. But specific to Yule, what we do there is celebrate activities symbolic of rebirth and renewal. Of course, in many pagan traditions, the oak and the holly king trade places on this
Mhm.
day or this night. And so we honor that, have a lot of holly hanging of the greens. One thing that we do that is really powerful when we had the outdoor meeting space in Black Mountain was that we'd build a campfire. And then when the end of the ritual was about to come, everybody brought a candle that meant something special to them. It could be a ritual candle or just one they made themselves or one that just spoke to them. And we all stand in a circle. And then one person lights a candle from the fire and then lights the person next to their candle. And then that person lights the next candle. And then that person lights the next candle. And the fire slowly spreads around the entire circle. And soon everybody is shining their light forth. And that's a graphic representation of the rebirth of the sun at Yule time. So that's one thing that we do, along with the music and everything else. And of course, eating till you make yourself sick, just about.
That's the fun part. I mean, yeah, pagans are
Yeah.
pretty food oriented, aren't we? I don't
Yeah.
care what tradition you are.
Uh,
We're good at that.
yeah.
So tell us about your book. So let's go on and book.
Sure.
Um,
Foundational Druidry.
yeah.
That's the book. It's written to be a companion piece to the Foundational Druidry course online. It's a lot of the information from the online course is included in the book, but then there's also some additional information if you're interested in expanding your studies past the online course. And it's divided up into 3 sections: the Earth Path, the Sun Path, and the Moon Path. And it's 52 lessons, one lesson to be done each week. And a third of those lessons are Earth Path, a third of those lessons are Moon Path, a third of those lessons are Sun Path. So let me break those down a little further and tell you what those are. The Earth Path is the triad of the Earth Path is the OM alphabet, sustainability or deep ecology, and then animal wisdom, spirit animals, animal guides, that sort of thing. The Sun Path is the triad of the Sun Path is rites of passage, which are things like celebrating births, celebrating weddings, having funerals, those sorts of things. Wheel of the Year, which is central to our practice and our order, the Wheel of the Year, celebrating all the high days. And then the last one there is gods and goddesses. How do you relate to your god or goddess, or do you have gods or goddesses that you speak to, and how do they work with you? And then the final thing, the Moon Path, the triad there is dream work, shamanism, or vision seeking. Some people don't like to use the word shaman, but if you prefer vision seeking, then we can do that. And then meditation. So the Earth Path is about our relationship to the earth. The Sun Path is about our relationship to divinity. And then the Moon Path is about our relationship to the divine within ourselves. And so that's what the whole book covers over 52 weeks.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's sounds like a highly structured course. As people see, the sun's coming in, but I don't care. That's
Yeah.
it's very interesting. So we're talking about the sun rising alone because Yule is the shortest day of the year, so the sun comes down early.
Yeah.
Um, wow. And so let's talk a little bit about your music. So you say you have some albums out. Can you tell us about them?
Yes, the first pagan album I came out with was The Winter of the Wheel, and I think it was 2015, 2016. And as you can probably tell by the old white hair here, I'm a little on the ancient side.
Mm-hmm.
So the Winter of the Wheel was just about being on the, if you use the wheel of the year as a metaphor for your journey through life, then the winter time is where I am now. I'm in the final phases of the wheel of the year this go around. And so that album was about my journey on the pagan path up to this point, and what I've experienced as a pagan over these many years. And the one standout song on that one was the title track, "Winter of the Wheel," where I pay homage to some of the pagan leaders like Selena Fox and Oberon Zell, those folks, Starhawk.
Yeah, they've been around for a while here, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's very interesting because I always joke about, well, I remember when they were young people.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's very interesting. And then they can find that on is that the same place? BlackMountainDruidry.com?
Yes, you can find it anywhere you find music. I have a Bandcamp under Sencha Skene, and that's SenchaSkene. The Bandcamp there. You can also go to the Black Mountain Druidry website, and you can get them there. Or you can also just go to Amazon Music and get them there, or any place you buy music, you can get those.
Okay. You're gonna say something?
I was just going to say there's a couple more albums if you'd like me to talk about those.
Sure, continue on, please do.
Okay, there's one called "Sometimes the Wolves Are Silent." That is more of a hard rocker. I came up in the music industry back in the days when Black Sabbath and all those heavy metal bands were things. So this is kind of like my final heavy metal album to get it out, get it out of my system. So that's a little more hard rocking for those of you who enjoy that sort of thing. And then the most recent album was the Shadow Mountain Fae. Like I said, my wife and I moved here from the Appalachians, and we're moving. We're right here in the Cascade Mountain area, and there's a whole different energy from the Appalachian Mountains to the Cascade Mountains. And the Shadow Mountain Fae, we're here in the shadow of Mount Rainier. So meeting that Fae energy in the woods here is a lot different than the Appalachian energy. So that music there was, number one, a farewell to Appalachia, and number two, trying to capture some of the energy of the mountains of the Cascades here, that Shadow Mountain energy. There is a couple of songs on that album that are a little more bluegrass than I usually do. One of them is called Hoodoo Granny, and there's another one that I remade an old bluegrass favorite called Wayfaring Stranger. For those of you who might be familiar with it, it's a Christian song, but I paganized it. I turned it into a journey to Valhalla instead of a journey to heaven, so to speak. So that if you're into that sort of thing, then that might be something you want to check out. And then I have one that's coming out after the first of the year, probably no later than early spring, called Druid Chants. And that one of the songs on that is called Ancestor Chant. And that's a song that we sing, that we wrote for ritual many years ago. And so I put out a call to the pagan musician community, and we have several contributors that are going to be singing along on that one. So that'll be out sometime February, March of next year.
That's terrific. I mean, that's a really a lot of great music, it sounds like, and you can find it at all these sort of places. And we've been playing some on Pagan World TV, as I know.
Yeah.
A few of them
Thanks for
on there.
that.
Well, at least we can do it. And that you've been also offered a lot of things through video online, and you have this. So you have a course for free. You
Yes.
have a book to follow along. So if you wanted to read it, you got that. You have some music behind it. So it sounds like
Yeah.
you really are working you're doing your work for the
Yes.
community out there.
It helps that I retired from being a therapist about 2 years ago, so now I have a little free time. Keeps
There
me
you
out
go.
from under my wife's feet.
And well, yeah, I can imagine that, be hard. As I become a man of a certain age, I find myself, I just celebrated 30 years of in my own tradition of being an elder. It's like, wait a minute, I can't be.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Some people give me condolences, but
Having been a pagan leader, I can understand why.
yeah. But in this, I think that one of the things I think that you've done really well is that you're continuing to bring forward Druidry, and Druidism has become popular. But one of the things I think people look at Druids, and oftentimes they look at Druids the same way as they look at Native Americans or other indigenous people who got pushed out.
Yes.
And I understand that. And now this revival, people are always talking about, well, it's not, is it, is this a revival of it for you? Is it something that you see as a continuous process? How do you see yourself related to that sort of historical idea?
There are two major schools of thought in Druidry. Of course, again, I'm not speaking for the entire Druid community. There's an old joke that if you ask 6 Druids a question, you'll get 12 opinions. But here's the way I see it. There's Reconstructionism, which is people who want to be as historically accurate as possible, except, of course, for that human sacrifice bit, which means that they go back through the archaeological records and the ancient texts and all that and try to reconstruct Druidry as much as possible, as closely to what they think that the ancestors might have practiced. And then there's the revivalists who started in the 18th century with people like Edward Williams, also known as Iolo Morganwg, Tolland, those folks along those lines, who basically associated anything mysterious with the Druids. That's how they came up with the idea that the Druids built Stonehenge. We know now that that's probably not true, but that doesn't mean that the Druids didn't use it back then, and that certainly doesn't mean that they don't use it now. But that Druid revival thing that's almost 300 years old, a lot of it we now recognize was made up on the spot by some of those folks. But at the same time, that we've been doing it for 300 years, so we don't try to get rid of all of that just because we say, well, you did it for 300 years, but because we know that it was not historically accurate, we're going to throw it away now. It means something to a lot of people. An example would be the Celtic tree alphabet, or the tree moon alphabet that we use that's based on the Ogham. It's not historically accurate, but we have found it useful for these 40 years. So we haven't thrown that out just because there's no way to prove that it was historical. So what we consider ourselves as an order is kind of the midway between the Reconstructionists and the Revivalists. We want to be as historically accurate as possible, but we also recognize that some of this stuff that may not have been what our ancient ancestors practiced still has utility for us today. And that's okay too. If we reinvent it for our own use, that's fine. We have a saying in our order that if you do it more than 3 times, it's an ancient tradition. So that's our qualifications for being a tradition. If we find it useful enough to do it 3 times, then boom, it's a tradition. So that's kind of our perspective on all that. Did that answer the question? Right?
I think you did. I think you answered it very openly.
Okay.
I do think that people make a mistake of thinking that because we do have these ancient practices that they can't be brought into a modern context, that you can't
Exactly.
add more of it. I mean,
Yeah.
the truth is, if we lived the way some of our ancestors, wouldn't have electricity and a whole bunch of things. And I think that the adaptation of it. But I think at the core, what I think a lot of people think of Druids, when you go out to the public, is this idea of tree lovers, nature lovers.
Yes.
The idea of the people who live out in the woods. And then I see the other side of it is that a lot of people see them as like the wizards, Merlin, the idea of the learned folk. In those two stereotypes, those are very common, the tree hugger, and then the idea of these sort of men of knowledge, these people of knowledge.
Yes. And I would personally argue that if you're a man of knowledge, then you're naturally a tree hugger, because if you get rid of all the trees, you're not going to be around long enough to be a man of knowledge anymore.
Fair enough.
What we do to the environment, we do to ourselves. So if we cut down all the trees, we're cutting ourselves down, basically. But on the other hand, a little more serious note, if you look at what the word druid means, there are various theories on where it comes from, but most of the scholars tend to agree that it means something similar to wise person or a person who is learned, that sort of thing. Same root as the word Wicca, same root as the word vicar, for the Christian folks. Same root as the word wisdom, same root as the word weird. Well, not the same word, but close enough. The etymology of the words are rooted in the same concept. So basically all it means is a person who has taken the time to learn and who loves learning and loves scholarship. But we also have the added element of caring for and sustaining the earth.
And that's an important thing. So for people who want to, learn more about it, you have an online course for free.
Yes.
A year. You have a book, Foundational Druidism. And then if you want to get some of the energy around it, you've got your music.
Yes.
So there you go. Go ahead.
The forthcoming album, the Druid Chants, is some of those chants on that album we have been using in ritual for years. So if you like music in your rituals, that's you might want to pick that up when it comes out, because that, again, that's some of the participatory chants that we do for the whole group when we do a circle. So speaking of bringing energy into the whole thing, that might be useful.
That'd be, yeah, there we go. And you can find that at Black Mountain Druidry.
Yes,
.com.
we have two URLs that'll take you to the same spot: blackmountaindruidry.com or blackmountaindruidorder.com.
And
So either one will get you to the same spot.
terrific. Well, any last messages for our folks out there that's out there?
Blessings of the ancestors.
And with that, thank you. And we're going to be back more with our Yule tidings.